Welcome on a Sunday night, August the 2nd, our live stream. We're talking about violets on the window. And we're going to talk about chapter 8, getting to know the colony. And then if we have time, we'll go in chapter 9, which is volitation, which is very exciting. That is movement by thought. So this is, I've had quite a few of these already. And if you want, you go back on my YouTube or BitChute channels and see the other chapters I've talked about on violets in the window. But before I begin, please subscribe, hit the bell, hit the like button, comment if you can. It will all help the algorithm for more people to find all about Spiritism. So again, I want to welcome everybody tonight. And we're talking about this wonderful, it's a very, it's not a large book, not a big book, but it's a wonderful book, and it tells things in very plain language about one of the first levels of heaven. It's about a spirit named Patricia who died pretty young, and she writes about her experiences in this colony called San Sebastian. Now, there is a movie out on a colony called No Solar, and it's a movie, you can find it as Astral City, and you can rent it on YouTube or Amazon or whatever way you want to rent it. Or buy it. We bought it. We watch it about once a year. It's a wonderful movie, and it's all about Dr. Andre Louise, and he goes into heaven. He dies on the operating table, and he spends some time in the lower zone. And this is the story of going into heaven and to the colony No Solar. Now she's talking about a different colony called San Sebastian, but her revelations from are just remarkable. And she tells you so much about spirit life. And this is what I really like about bringing Spiritism to everybody, is it's giving you actionable things to think about of how you want to look at your life on earth and what you want to do about it. Now let's get right into the books. So this is chapter 8, getting to know the colony. So she says, Federico took me for a ride on an aerobus. This is the mass transit vehicle used in the spirit world. There are 3 sizes of aerobuses, and they are used in almost all the colonies. There is the big one used for a large number of passengers, the medium, and the small one. I cannot think of anything comparable to this spectacular method of transportation on Earth. It is like a bus, but has airplane features, completely silent. It doesn't pollute, besides being comfortable and clean. It slides softly close to the ground or a few meters above it. In longer trips, like the ones to Earth, it glides through the air. The passengers sit in comfortable chairs. It doesn't have wings, however. Many of these vehicles circulate only inside the colony. Others connect one colony to another, as well as the colonies to Earth. There are predetermined stops for passengers to board and disembark them. So, I just talked about volitation, movement by thought. But that doesn't mean everyone in the colony has that skill yet. As when you first pass over and go into the spirit world, you're a bit confused. It takes you a while, and you also have to start learning about the spirit world. Now, there are many spirits who go into one of the lower colonies who really have, this is maybe their first time in being one of the levels of heaven. Many spirits, and of course, I think all, have one time or another spent time in the lower zone, which is the space around the crust of the earth to the beginning of the lower level of heaven, or even lower than that, the dark abyss, which you may call a purgatory, which is a hell-like place, purgatory-like place, where people who are real criminals and go, right? And that's the law of affinity. No one's there forever, and they leave there when their character and attitude changes, and they stop wanting, instead of taking advantage of people, they want to help people and be nice. The lower zone, more people materialistic, not spiritual, and even they will get an opportunity once they change their mind. They'll go up into the higher colonies. Now, I don't want to tell anybody that people go around the lower zone or the dark abyss like zombies. No, there's organizations, there's cities. In fact, I talk about a city in purgatory on Tuesdays lately. So you might want to watch that. It's called The Officer, and it's actually called Gone gone west, and I've had different parts of it, of a person exploring the top levels of heaven, and now it's the part of it is the officer of his story in purgatory. Very interesting. I'm giving you kind of two sides of the coin here. And of course, everybody can make their own choice. And the nice thing is nothing's permanent. You can always live wherever you wish, depending on your character and your personality. So they carry on. And she says, aerobuses do not go near the umbral, which is the lower zone. Umbral is the word Portuguese. In rare cases, they go to the rescue stations located in the umbral. The ones that run around the colony do not have conductors. At their designated stops, there are selection boxes with buttons indicating the places where they stop. You press the button to signal the stop you want to go to. The first aerobus that passes by and is going your way will stop. Aerobuses that run outside the colony have conductors who, besides conducting, help with the work to be done. Seen from a height, the colony is very beautiful. It is also well planned. Now, let me stop there and give you. Now, this picture I have up, I'll make it larger. The picture of the colony, and this is not of San Sebastian, but this is a colony that is bigger, no solar. So we'll show this one first. This is a bigger picture of here, and this is a drawing made by a medium in response to how Andre Luis, the spirit who dictated the book to Chico Xavier, No Solar. This is what the colony looks like from, let's say, aerial point of view. Very organized. So this is the mundane secret of heaven. It's earth made more perfect, and yet there's very wonderful things that are beyond your power to even think about. But there's also that sense of familiarity. There's streets, there's organizations, there's work. There's all these things that are there that seem natural to you, right? There's buses, there's parks, there's entertainment, as we talked about last week. There's theaters and there's plays, music. So this is a real colony. The big difference is when you're in heaven, you are with people who made it to heaven by being nice, selfless, right? You don't have to be perfect, but really good individuals who, don't want to steal from you, don't want to stab you in the back, and want the best for you. And that's like, it's like the experience you've had maybe, and I've had small experiences like that, but they were very wonderful in places at work where I worked with just a wonderful group of people. We were all there working for the good of the company and working for the good of what we were doing. And it was just a very exciting experience. And you wanted to go to work every morning. And that's what it is into one of these first levels of heaven. Let me show you another picture so you can get an idea of what No Solar looks like. Now, this is not a picture of San Sebastian, but I would say that it would look somewhat similar. Though I think this is the reincarnation pavilion. I could be wrong, but again, this is the architecture. Now, different colonies have different architecture. There are colonies on the tops of most cities around the world. And, this No Solar and so San Sebastian are a colony city above Brazil. So when you're in the first level of heaven and you die and go to one of these cities, you still speak Portuguese until you learn to communicate by thought, until you learn to do volatile. This is a place where you get indoctrinated, you get used to, you get taught every one thing that's going on in the spirit world. Now, you say, well, what happened to my memory? Well, a lot of people, when they get back, they'll remember their past lives, but many people will take a while for them to remember what they were in the spirit world after they came over from the physical life. So this is all getting them back into the swing of things. And of course, in one of the first levels of heaven, there's a fair number of people who have never been in heaven, right? These are new people that have gone to that level. So, seen from a height, the colony is very beautiful. It is also well planned. Its streets and avenues forming perfect lines. The buildings are in harmony with the environment and fully occupied, serving the community well. I enjoyed that trip very much. San Sebastian Colony is in the spiritual space above the city where I lived when incarnated. I thought it was strange that the colony had been named after a saint. So I asked Federico, why was the colony named San Sebastian? And the answer was, Patricia, there are numerous colonies around Brazil and throughout the world. They're like cities and must be named to facilitate references to them. Names are not important, being just designations. When this colony was planned a long time ago, its patrons decided to call it San Sebastian temporarily to avoid the word paradise, which could be confused with its other meaning, namely heaven. Once it was finished, its name remained San Sebastian. You know that San is the title given to the brave warrior Sebastian. So it is the hope of the city patrons that all the colony residents become brave warriors, emerging victorious over their imperfections and faults. So then she goes on to say, I'd received some bonus hours as gifts, and all the entertainment and leisure I had enjoyed had been paid for by my friends. That seemed strange to me, like receiving payment for being useful, a paid activity. One day, coming back from the theater with Mauricio and Antonio, I asked them, what are bonus hours really? So now explain. So this is part of heaven. This is part where to get more things. Now, you don't have to do anything in heaven, but that's, why are you in heaven if you're just going to be idle and do nothing? It doesn't make sense. You want to keep doing something positive and keep helping other people. So this is what Mauricio explained. He goes, Patricia, most people work because of incentives so they can enjoy a pleasure or a sensation. The majority of them cannot conceive of humanity as one family. When the physical body is lost during its demise, it is necessary for them to continue receiving an incentive for their labors so that they won't lose the will to work. Labors which later on they'll do for a greater reason, for love. The superior spirits see these colonies as transitional places and bonus hours as evolutionary stages. That is the reason why the residents of the colonies receive their salaries in bonus hours. And those who work very hard and for a long time, like the governor and instructor of the colony, do they earn bonus hours too? Asked Patricia. And Mauricio said, the instructors don't need premiums for being good. They stay in the colony among the novices for the love of the human family, so as not to humiliate them, to avoid prominence of being confused as conceited. They use their bonus hours to stay on a par with the residents who still live within the reward and punishment system. Everyone uses bonus hours, thus avoiding the emergence of privilege and of forsaken groups. Those who work very hard and could receive a lot more only ask for the bare necessities. Now, let's talk about that for a second. So bonus hours are things you get for working. And they said this is kind of this is what people are used to, right? Okay, we got to keep you busy, keep you going, and you get paid for your work. But now as they go higher and higher, and I talk about this in my book, Heaven and Below, there's no reason for any type of payment, right? It's once you learn more and more about thought is action in the spirit world, here you can buy your own house in no solar. You can work long enough, and you can buy your own little house in no solar, let's say, for instance. In the higher levels, you don't need that. You make the house with your mind. You create it out of universal fluid. Or you and a group of friends get together and create a house, or create your whole parkland, however you want to be. This is a very logical, you can make your own logical construction, create your own architecture. So as you go higher and higher, your power becomes so great. All that is not needed. So then Patricia said, I realized that my companions didn't serve or work for bonus hours. Instead, they used them only when necessary. Love was the reason they both worked very hard. Still curious, I asked them again, but this time it was Antonio who answered me cheerfully. Are there people who in the colony who don't work and consequently have no rights to bonuses or leisure? And the answer was yes, but the length of stay for these spirits is not long, nor could it be, because lazy spirits aren't attuned to the colony. Unfortunately, they reincarnate at the first opportunity among lazy spirits like themselves, and only then they miss comfort they had but failed to appreciate. So again, indirectly, he's talking about the law of affinity. This is the law where like comports with like, right? So let's say if you're a pickpocket and you're not a very nice person and you pass away, guess what? You're probably in the umbral or maybe even lower, and you're with people just like you, people who are mean, sarcastic, want to dominate you, and they don't really care about you. They only care about themselves. This is how it works. This is the genius of the spirit world. And this is how the spirit world helps us decide to turn for the better. Because when we're with people like us who are not nice, you get tired of that. Because if you're not a nice person, you like to be with nice, naive person because you can take advantage of them. It doesn't work when you're with all of them just like you. Then you are really have to understand what your attitude, what it brings to other people. Now, of course, spirits tell us all the time, the earth, when we're in a physical body, is the place to change your character and attitude, because then you're more receptive to stimuli coming in. But again, this is how the spirit world works. Now, carry on. Patricia says, libraries are places I really enjoy and therefore visit frequently. They differ in size depending on the colony. They are bigger and more comprehensive in the educational colonies. There are libraries and rescue stations as well, except they are smaller. The library at the San Sebastian colony is very beautiful, with books separated, orderly, and bookshelves. I was surprised by the fact I couldn't find worn-out books. They were always new, restored by the energy from the minds of those molded them. Mauricio told me that books never wear out because, like all other materials in the astral or spiritual plane, they are made of psychic energy. Now, that's a key. There's Patricia telling you that everything's made of psychic energy. What does that mean, psychic energy? It means by the power of your thought. There is no concept of decay. And in fact, we're told, if you think about time here on Earth, in time, everything decays. You get older. You cut a flower, it gets, decrepit fast. In the spirit world, you cut a flower, it stays in that vase until it has a time limit, until then it just kind of fades away. This is what it is. Time is really, according to spirits, you should call that duration. And so these books are in the library for the duration decided by the author. If he wants them in for, as long as he wants them, they're there until he decides, no, that book is out of date. I'm going to replace another book, and poof, it's gone, and another book is there, because it's psychic energy. The buildings are psychic energy. The walls are psychic energy. The air bus flows on energy that is created and it uses to be like a locomotive to other places. It's all about energy. It's all around. It's called universal fluid, and the whole spirit universe is composed of energy. And as spirits, we become, when we get rid of our physical body, we are more energy. We become, as we go higher and higher in heaven, we become a ratio of higher energy and less matter. Right now, we're mostly matter and some energy. When you get to the first level of heaven, you get more energy and less matter, and you go higher. Again, your ratio becomes higher and higher ratio of matter to energy. And when you get more like Jesus, which is very high spirit, you're just almost energy. How much this ratio is, I'm not sure. I did know one wrote that a spirit wrote that he was in this temple, and as Jesus went through, he handed each person a little flower, and he says, and it with a stem. He said probably why he handed them a stem with a flower, so he could make contact with that spirit without touching them. Because the spirit says, because if I touched Jesus directly, I might have been disintegrated because he has so much energy. I couldn't have stood the burst of power that would have come from Christ at that location. So I'll carry on. So some of them are written just for discarnate spirits, and so are only found in the spiritual plane. There are all sorts of books, reference, and research material, as well as religious tomes, mostly spiritists. The great majority of them are also available to incarnates, especially to spiritists. As I cannot find the book I was looking for, the librarian kindly asked. Goes, Patricia, they have this book in the higher education colony. Do you want me to order it for you? Goes, yes, when should I come back for it? And then the librarian says, well, wait for a few minutes, it'll be here. The order was placed using a device that looked like a modern fax machine. 10 minutes later, I received the books via the same machine. Cool, I exclaimed, surprised. Isn't it wonderful, the librarian asked enthusiastically. We have all kinds of resources here. We received this book by way of disintegration and reintegration. I don't doubt that in a few years, incarnates will enjoy this advantage. So This is where they take, this is, this is like teleportation in Star Trek. And they say that eventually that will be known on Earth. How long, I don't know, but they'll take it apart, molecule by molecule, atom by atom, right? Whatever, and then re-put it in. In fact, a spirit can do that. There is a passage in the book, in one of the books by Chico Xavier, Andre Luis series, where a spirit had like this physical flower, and he went through a wall, and he disintegrated the flower, went through the wall, and reintegrated it with his mind, because he probably in his mind he probably collected exactly the components and how they were structured, made them just made them part of his spirit universe, went through the physical wall, and then reallocated them back there, so he'd have the same physical artifice, so the same flower. And then she also said, cool are the books we can watch on television. The written text appears on the screen thanks to a small gadget adapted to it. We can read a page at a time. I cannot compare it to the video cassette recorders because it is different. It is so nice to read on the television. So, of course, you can see this book was written during the time of the fax machines, which no one even knows, what is a fax machine now? If you grew up just recently, in the last 10 years, you have no idea. And then, of course, the video cassette, same thing. So this is all electronically, but this is even higher than what we can do. And of course, as Chico Xavier said, the spirit world is 50 to 100 years ahead of us. So they are showing what she's talking about is probably within 50 to 100 years, you'll see the same thing, right? Where they'll have teleportation. And of course, we already have a small gadget you can read on the screen that's here now. And nearby, then I'll carry on. Nearby the library, there are video rooms, also called computer study rooms or TV rooms. They can also be known by other names. They are big halls which are divided into reading rooms according to the subject to be aired. These places are comfortable and very pleasant. Each room is equipped with several state-of-the-art computers which can be turned on by remote control. There are 10 beautiful and comfortable chairs in front of each machine. Screen sizes vary. If we want to watch or study a subject individually, we adjust the screen to the smaller size, similar to like a 20-inch TV. If it is for a group, we adjust it to the medium size. If it is for many people, we adjust it to the largest size, which varies from 2 to 5 meters, which is about 6.5 to 16 feet. The ceilings of these rooms are not that high, usually 3.5 meters high. So if a larger projection is needed, the equipment can be moved out. Each reading room has a sign on the door showing the subject covered with such topic as colonies, paraspirit, chemistry, physics, earth, planets, etc. The room for religion and the Bible is an extremely interesting one. So again, you have all these resources. Now, you can see how all this is relatable. You can, you've got the TV room, you've got screens, you have projections, all very relatable. And yet, as you go higher and higher, it becomes more and more fantastic, right? They'll teach you to start plugging into the universal cloud where you can pull this information out as you want to. There's still libraries and so forth, but there's other ways of accessing information. Then Patricia carries on. Before you go into these reading rooms, you should choose a topic for research. For example, the human eye. You can also choose such programming levels as beginner, intermediate, or advanced. Basic explanations about the eye appear on the screen when one chooses the beginner's level. The eye is drawn from all possible angles with narration and text included. If it is private research, headphones can be used so as not to disturb other researchers. If you choose the intermediate level, you get a lot more detail. The third level, the most thorough, is the advanced one for professionals. Everything is very educational. Yet, if the material is not understood for any reason, there are teachers and other students in the room who enjoy teaching and helping others. There are entertainment rooms that can show cartoons and good movies, some made by incarnates and other by discarnates. These are beautiful stories that educate and entertain. There are also electronic game rooms to be used during leisure hours. Counselors try to monitor the attendance of game rooms, as games are for educational and entertainment purposes only and not to be taken to excesses. There is resistance to all bad habits. In summary, we can say that these rooms are a mixture of movies, TVs, and state-of-the-art computers. The only time we do not use bonus hours when going to the game rooms is when we use them for research or surveys. Almost all colonies have these faculties, but I didn't see them in the rescue stations. So imagine you die and you go to this place. It looks all familiar, right? You've got game rooms, you have entertainment, you have libraries, you have education, you have all these things. It's not like you're going to be completely lost in heaven. You have all these loving people around you to make you feel as they're part of the family. So I'll carry on. In educational colonies, game rooms are very popular with the students. They are enormous and the subjects are innumerable. I enjoyed and still do going to these research centers. I think I love this technology because I was familiar with movie, television, computers while incarnated. What pleased me most was using the process to learn about the works of Allan Kardec. One can see the images of him and his staff, both the incarnate and discarnate ones, working on each of his books, and also see Allan Kardec studying, researching, and being helped by the mentors who assisted him. What a captivating spirit Allan Kardec was. It was truly fascinating to see St. Louis, St. Augustine, and so many others. Of course, let me talk about that for a second. So in Allan Kardec's The Spirits book, which is his first book, and other books, these spirits that were all organized by the Spirit of Truth, St. Louis, St. Augustine, and other Leonardo da Vinci, these people were all part of the spirits who helped Allan Kardec write, actually compose his comments from the Spirits book. He was not a medium, so they just worked through him kind of through inspiration. And then these ultimate are the ones that talk directly to mediums, in which Allan Kardec codified the Spirits book by the answers that Kardec, he gave the same questions to multiple mediums, unless the different mediums came back with a similar or same answer to the same question, he did not codify it. So again, you can see where other people, very good people, will write books about how they channeled a message from one spirit. But this is Spiritism is a whole phalanx of spirits that work to give us this third revelation, right? The first being from Moses, the second being Jesus Christ, and the third being Spiritism. I went to these study halls several times to learn everything I could about them and their admirable work. That's one of the most sought after subjects, particularly by those who are fortunate enough to be Spiritists when incarnated, who got acquainted with Spiritism's magnificent literature. I was delighted with all of that. After all, who wouldn't like to use these faculties? So first, wouldn't you love that? And of course, this is really one of, I think, the important things to remember is heaven wants people. I mean, the spirit world wants people to go to heaven, and they want people to go to heaven because they want people to learn about the spirit world and then become productive members of the spirit society. And who do you want to work for you or work with you in your company? You want people who are self-disciplined and intellectually curious. You don't want people thinking, I'm going to go to heaven and I'm just going to sit on a chair by the beach that I'll describe in my mind, and I'll do nothing for eternity. But that's not what heaven wants. They want people that really want to learn and are excited about things. Now, also, San Sebastian, the colony, is above Minas Gerais, and it's a city in Brazil. I don't know what is city. I mean, it's a state in Brazil. It didn't say what. San Sebastian de Paraíso is the name of the city in Minas Gerais. Okay, so I just read that. So it must be a city in Minas, which is a state which is close to the state of Rio de Janeiro. So now let's talk about volitating. And this is important because volitating is movement by thought. And so I want to go over this because just the fact that you can do movement by thought exposes what the spirit world is about. But let's go and see what she says about it first. This is chapter 9, Volatility. I always heard from home from my family. I had continued to receive their prayers, encouragement, wishes for my happiness, and for an early adjustment to spiritual life. Spiritual friends would write through psychography, using my Aunt Vera as a medium, giving me news about my family. I was so happy. And then Mauricio said, Patricia, write a note to your mother and I'll transmit it through your aunt. In touch, I wrote a note thanking them for all their love, telling them I was well, and sending them hugs and kisses. Since then, I continued to write them messages, which my friends transmitted through my aunt. I was in peace. Passing over has not made such a difference to me, and I never felt separated from my loved ones. I was aware that I had not lost my individuality. I remained the same person, and my love for my family was the same. We cannot separate our lives. It's one whole process, incarnate or discarnate, being only phases. I had received so much, but I was also aware that we are heirs to our deeds. Reaction is a function of action. So, and she's telling us we are in this long stretch of immortality. We incarnate, we are discarnate, we have family. We tend to reincarnate with family because the law of affinity puts us together with ones who are like us. Now, every so often, families will have other people that they'll volunteer to take maybe a more primitive spirit to help that spirit learn and become advanced during that one life. That's why a lot of times you'll see like the black sheep in the family. You'll see like 3 or 4 kids, and then this 5th kid or whatever is like, where did that guy come from? And that's usually probably they volunteered to take this more primitive spirit. That's now again that spirit maybe not a very tame person on earth, I should say, but eventually that person will arise and become just as good as perfect as that person can be, and they will eventually become a perfected spirit. Who knows how many lives in advance, but everyone, this is why there are differences in functions and capabilities, is because there's all sorts of levels of spirits on the earth. There are spirits who haven't been in this, human state, this free will state for a long, long time, and therefore they haven't, built up their intelligence, their wisdom, or their spirituality. And then there's spirits who've gone through many, many lives, are calmer, and have built up their intelligence and know how to use their conscience and have lots of wisdom. People, spirits like Socrates and and like that, Confucius, that are here on missions from heaven, who come down and help us become a little bit more spiritually mature. So then Grandma called her and said, Patricia, come to the living room. I'm going to give you your first volitating lesson. And I went quickly. The house's 3 residents were present, encouraged me. It's easy, they said. You know how to do it. You used to leave your body while sleeping while you were incarnated. All you need to do is to focus your thoughts and willpower. Volitating, said Grandma, as if she had memorized it, is like fluctuating, moving through air by the force of your will. So then Grandma took me by one arm and Amelia by the other, trying to give me the necessary impulse to be airborne. We tried several times until I managed to take off and lift myself 1 meter above the ground. It was easier to move upwards and then turn horizontally. I got stuck in that position, and again the 2 ladies helped me by giving me a gentle push and encouraging me cheerfully. Indeed, it was not so difficult. Soon I was in the middle of the room, volitating slowly from one side to the other. Now, in one of the books, and I talk about this in Spirit and the Spirit Universes, which is book 2 about Spiritism. And this is by Spiritism talking to the Reverend G. Val Owen. And they talk about a class on the higher levels of heaven where the children there who are learning, and they have games that use volitation. And the games, and this helps teaches them. And one of the games is they are like in a circle around a fountain. And then they have to volitate and move from the fountain, close their eyes, not see, and move to a spot on the fountain. And then they have to move back to the same spot. That's how they learn. They learn to go through and to visualize where they're going to go and visualize where they're going to go back. They also have another one where they all have like a younger child, and they lift them up, and through volitating, a group of children will lift that children up, move them around, make them like they're sitting on a throne, all these things. So this is like, when children are teaching themselves to use that power. Like when you were a kid and you played Marco Polo in the pool, where you close your eyes and you yell Marco, and then you have your eyes closed, but you hear the word polo, and you try to go to that swimmer who has his eyes open and tries to dodge everyone. So this is someone learning how to use their mind to move their body, which is their paraspirit, which is a body created by how like Patricia's body, by how she saw herself. You make how you want to look. And then Grandma said, until you learn it, don't be absent-minded. Volitating is like learning to walk or riding a bicycle or swimming while incarnate. Once you learn it well, it becomes second nature to you. So I knew about volitating, having read about it in several spiritist books. The feeling of volitating is really pleasant and nice. I also knew that discarnates walk through walls, doors, etc. I gave myself a push, going straight to a wall, and I heard Grandma yelling, "Patricia, don't!" And then bam, I hit my head on the wall and fell on my behind on the floor. I sat there as my friends ran, stood all around me, nobody laughing. I looked at them and started laughing myself. It was a good tumble. I got up and asked curiously, "Hey, Grandma, why didn't I go through the wall?" Because, "Patricia, you can only do it after you learn how to volitate. You've read that spirits go through walls and doors, but these were of material construction. In other words, houses of incarnates. Even so, that feat is for those who know how to do it, those who are aware of their discarnate state and also have learned it well. Only the good ones know how? Because no, the bad ones also know, and they use it frequently. Everyone can learn it, since it depends on our willpower, our free will. The good ones know more because they have those who teach them, besides being themselves more interested in learning. The colony is not constructed like the world of the incarnates. It is a mental projection." So let's talk about that for a second. So doesn't it tell you everything about the logical construct of really the spirit universe? When first, Grandma said it's a mental projection. Volitate. Think about what volitation means. I mean, you can, if I think myself here, I'm here in my office doing the streaming. I said, no, I want to go to the moon. I think about the moon, and I can go to the moon. So how can that be if the universe is at all physical? It's impossible. First of all, there's no speed of light in the universe, in the spirit universe. And so what it comes down to is that we think we're in a physical universe because we have certain laws and we have certain governors placed upon us that we can't do many things. We can't, our minds don't do much, right? I can't move this TV. I can't myself volitate from one, state to a country on the earth. But if I was a spirit, I could quite rapidly by the speed of thought. So what does that mean? It means that we must live in a logical construct. We live in an area where we control, the application, the programming. Let's take an example. Think of your favorite game that you play on your phone or your laptop or your desktop, and think of yourself as a character in that game. And that character can go from place to place, and you tell that character, go from here to there. Now, if you're that character, you would think you are moving, and you're moving by bus, by car, by plane, by boat. You think you're actually covering distance because you see that environment all around you. But in reality, there's no distance. You're just changing your environment, right? That character says, okay, the character, go on a boat, and then the state of that character appears on a boat, and everything around that character looks like a boat, but the character is just a logical construct, right? It's not real reality as we think about it. It's a force of the designers and programmers and of you who are controlling that video game. This is how we are, right? The spirit world is this huge energy that constructs reality through the thought of very free will spirits, higher spirits. This is why a lot of people say, well, heaven is whatever you make of it. Well, it's true and not true. It's not true in the fact that when we go to heaven, we hear we're kind of immature spirits. We're not primitive spirits, but we're immature spirits. And then as we go into heaven, our perception is influenced by superior spirits who've created that environment, and therefore we fit into that environment. And its perception is also by other spirits around us, and so we associate ourselves with what we think should be there. And as we go higher and higher, we can create our own environments more and more and more. But again, those are a lot dictated by very powerful, focused, completely, lords of the spirit universe who's created these constructions. So that's how that works. Now, let me carry on. To explain it better, Grandma says, so you understand, think of it being made of the same subtle material as our spirit, paraspirit. The body we have right now, certainly are those who know how to go through this subtle matter. Superior spirits as well as inferior ones. Our superior brothers and sisters, I refer to them this way so you can better understand it, the more in harmony they are with the cosmos, the more mental powers they have. In order to go through a mental barrier, it is necessary not to doubt that one can do it. I have seen an instructor show it. He projected a passageway and went through it. But this is used only in emergency. Now, again, it's this, this is where they say it's mental, it's a mental power, right? The more you believe you can do something, the more mental power you have. And what we've been told by higher spirits, and I talk about this in my book, Spirits and the Spirit Universe, and when I talk about mental power, is they say is faith can be measured in the spirit world. And so this is why it's so interesting to learn about Spiritism, because then you're really seeing what is awaiting you there. So your ability to believe in yourself and to know what's right, and then what that does is that focuses your energy to create through universal fluid, right? That passageway in that wall that was created by another spirit, but you said, no, I want to create a temporary exit through there. And this is where, and this is like when they call on Earth for us to change our character and our attitude, where they tell us, don't be angry, right? And let's give you an example of focus and faith. Don't be angry, because anger lets you release primitive emotions. And the reason we're here is we want to control primitive emotions. We don't want to let it control us, right? We want to get rid of, the reason we're on Earth is we want to replace primitive emotions with more advanced ones, with love, charity, fraternity, and honesty. So they say, if something, let's say on Earth, for you to start preparing yourself for heaven, if something happens that you don't like, right? Don't be angry, but you can be indignant. So what does indignant mean? It means that you focus your energy and you can speak, not in a loud yelling voice, but you can say, look, you can speak in a commanding voice. And you say, no, this has to be done, and I recommend you do it. But you can be indignant, and you can show the force of your will, but you don't have to show the anger. And of course, this is what Patricia's grandmother is talking about, is the force of will. And then she goes, didn't you hear while you were incarnated that in spiritist centers, discarnate brothers and sisters stay confined in one place, waiting for orientation? In many spiritist centers, mental energies are projected by its founders in conjunction with the material construction. In this manner, incarnates as well as discarnates can only enter and leave through the front door. These projections are also made in certain places and for a predetermined time to avoid attacks from the dark side. Only those who know how are able to go through. Maybe if you're willing, you can learn how to do it in the future. So let's talk about what you just said. This is important for those. I get all sorts of messages from people saying, why can't I just talk to spirits myself? I'm a medium. And I keep saying, yes, you can, but be educated first. Because just as the grandmother said, you can have pretty kind of not so good spirits come. So that's why you want to read Allan Kardec's The Book of Mediumship. And you want to read, some Francisco C. Xavier's, Andre Luis's, the spirit-inspired books like The Domains of Mediumship and In the Greater World. So you want to understand spirits. You want to understand, because spirits, spirits who are who are a lot like us and worse, right? They can try to fool you. And this is why, if you want to start doing this, I'd say that you in your home, let's say, set up a same time, let's say 7 o'clock on Tuesdays. Set up that time and do it for a half hour, whatever, and meditate, and don't do anything, but do that for a couple weeks until the good spirits will come and say, okay, this person's trying to communicate. They will come and stay in the same room in your house, and if you can have other people interested, have them with you, because then your mental energies can combine. But you should be all on like at least a common level of spiritism or study, and then they will protect you, just like she's saying. They'll protect you from not so good spirits coming and trying to fool you and interrupt your concentration. So let me carry on. So that was true, Patricia said. I'd not seen anyone enter our enter our house or any other place in the colony volitating. Let me take a drink. Everyone entered and exited calmly through the front door by opening it and closing it. I thought my fall was so funny I still laugh about it. Years later, I was teaching my cousin how to volitate, and I remembered that fall, so I decided to play a trick on him. So let's go, little Duffel. Come on, that's the way, go. I turned him toward the wall and pushed, holding my laughter. I thought he was going to hit his head like I did, but little Duffel did not know that spirits can go through walls. Having come to the spiritual plane, unlike me, without that knowledge, he came close to the wall, touched it with his hands, turned his head around and asked, Patricia, what do I do now? He goes, turn around and come back, I said, a little disappointed. Then she goes on, I mastered volitating in a few lessons by practicing around the house, around the garden. I would think about volitating and would concentrate, then raise up a few meters above ground and volitate to wherever I wanted. Grandma took me to the field or schoolyard where instructors teach volitation. I followed her happily. The school was very big with many fields and buildings. It was surrounded by trees and many benches and flower patches, which create a very pleasant atmosphere. The schoolyard was big, and in one part had grass, the other beautiful light gray tiles. At the San Sebastian colony, this field is divided into two areas. In one area, the neophytes learn how to volitate. In another, they learn nourishment through respiration. Throughout the place, soft and pleasant music is always being played. In the yards, the sound is louder, but not less pleasant. Soft music relaxes and stimulates people to work and learn. Everything fascinated me, and I enjoyed everything with curiosity. There were 5 volitating instructors busy at work. Each one had a small group of students. In the first class, the one closest to us, there were some discarnate spirits who would not give themselves a push. The instructor gently tried to help them with encouraging words, but it seemed they were afraid. I asked my grandmother, why don't they push themselves up? Don't they like to fly? And my grandmother said, well, maybe they doubt they can do it. Not everyone, Patricia, learns or easily likes to learn. I know of many discarnates here in the colony who don't even know why they don't want to learn. And Patricia asked, well, do you think that they will learn? He goes, well, the mere fact of them being here shows that they want to. Many had no idea of this possibility when they were on Earth. And when they passed away, they found all this very strange, and worse yet, doubted they could do it. Those who still want to can learn. So, again, this shows how we are prisoners of our own preconceptions. On Earth, so when we're on Earth, we pass away. We think right away that we're still kind of on an Earth-like place because, after all, we have a body. We can feel our body. Although it's our perispirit, but in our mind, we think we are solid. We're not as solid as we were, but in our mind, we think we are. And therefore, you think everything else works the same. In fact, there's many stories of people who had a severe disability or pains, and they still think they have that pain or disability when they're in the spirit world. They don't, but they think they do, and therefore they feel they have it. In the higher, in the colonies, they'll help them say, no, you don't have that. Let's help you through magnetic passes. And then they'll get rid of it after they can learn that, no, they don't have that disease or whatever they thought they had. And then she goes, Grandma registered me for the course. Dates and times were set. Everything was so well organized. I was introduced to the first instructor who interviewed me. Patricia, do you know anything about volitating? And she goes, yes, I do. He goes, excellent. He took me by the hands and gave me a push. I went out volitating calmly. He goes, oh, you should go on to class 3. The course had 5 levels, each one with its own instructor. I already knew the basics, so I went to group 3. I received a set of texts about volitation. It was well organized, and I learned fast. I finished the course in a few lessons and was ready to volitate at will. Now, volitation, she says, can be done in several ways: slow, fast, and very fast, vertically and horizontally. Slow is like walking, except it is done above ground. Volitation is seldom done around the colony, since people walk everywhere through the streets, avenues, and squares. Usually we volitate slowly. We use the fast mode when we are in a hurry. In the very fast mode, which was the last one we learned, we dematerialize in one place and materialize in another. We use this method for traveling long distances. For example, we go from one end of the earth to the other in a matter of seconds. Volitating vertically is used for fast locomotion, and horizontally when we want to enjoy the scenery. Now, let me tell you a story about volitation and how they go fast. When Chico Xavier, in the last years of his life, he was in a hospital room in Minas Gerais, where this city was. And the TV, he was very famous in Brazil. Actually, I would call him the most famous man in the 20th century. Not many people know of him outside of Brazil, but he will know. He was just wonderful. And they had a TV camera pointed to his room. I don't know what floor. It was a high floor, into where he was. And after he got out of the hospital room, they went through the footage, and they saw like this streak of light, just like within half a second, a streak of light going from the sky and went right into the room. And I go, oh, that was strange. And they noted the time of when it was. And they asked Chico, and it was, and one time I don't know if they asked Chico, but one time Chico saying, yeah, when I was in the hospital room, I had some spirits come and visit me. And one of them was Mary, the mother of Jesus. And I believe they caught that volitation, that little disturbance in the fabric of what we think is physical, but it was, this logical movement of spirits coming and being in Chico's hospital room to visit him for a while. So, I mean, these things are just fantastic to know. So then she goes on. Children and young people learn how to volitate on the yards of the learning centers. The more the personality is mixed up with the physical body, the denser the paraspiritual body is. Upon disconnecting the personality from the physical appearance, one goes wherever one wants because one has achieved cosmic consciousness. Volitating is a privilege for discarnates. Oh, what a grand and wonderful privilege. So, cosmic consciousness is really what we're in. We ourselves are in cosmic consciousness. We just don't know it. And because it doesn't feel real to us. I mean, how can you say I'm in cosmic consciousness? I can hit this table. I feel my face, right? I get hurt when someone hits me. It doesn't make sense to us. And yet that is the real reality. And the more we understand, in fact, I was told by the spirit one time, he goes, look, you need to understand the true reality. And I believe that means that to know that what we are experiencing here, we are on a campus called Earth, and it's not the reality we think it is. It's not the reality where we go through and we think, oh, we've got to earn the money. We got to be rich. We have to get our desires. And that's all fine if you want to do that. If you just do it honorably, there's no problem with that. But the main thing is for you to do things in a nice manner, nice, upright, wonderful manner, so you can be an honorable, charitable, fraternal person. And that's why I think it's so important for us to understand what the real reality is. And that is that we are sent on Earth. We are relatively immature spirits who are sent on Earth to improve our personality and our character. And the reason we are in this physical reality is to stop us from feeling too, if we get to a certain level and we're in one of the levels of heaven, the atmosphere is so nice you don't have to learn anything. So we're in this stimulus rich area where we're bombarded by 1,000 things all the time. And this is the time for us to go through some traumatic episodes to force us to change our character and our personality. Now, what we go through is a curriculum customized for each one of us to give us stimuli to affect our character and personality. Now, what I want to make sure everybody understands is that in the physical sense, in the matter sense, our life has set trials and tribulations. But in the moral sense, we have complete free will. We have free will to choose the wrong or right path. We have free will to learn a lesson from what we came through or not learn the lesson. Now, in one of Kardec's magazine articles, spirits mediums communicated with the spirit Diogenes. And he said, "Oh, you on Earth, you're slaves." And what he meant by that, I thought that was very enlightening. Of course, the spirit Diogenes was a spirit of looking with the light, looking for the one honest man in Athens. Couldn't find him. He's also the one that said that when Alexander the Great came up to him, he said, "What do you want?" He goes, "Well, I'd like to have my son. Can you move out of the way?" Because he was in Alexander's shadow. So what that means is for us to understand really what we are and for us to grow better, why we're here on this planet of atonement. And that planet of atonement is where we live to pay for our past wrongs and learn from our past wrongs. Now, eventually we'll go to a planet of regeneration. That's where the Earth is starting that journey now in the year 2000, where we will even have more freedom even in the matter area, where we can more communicate with spirits, right? Communicate with the spirit world and go, okay. And then in consultation, decide what path we want to take when we're in this matter. Although we will have greater intellectual ability as we go in higher and higher levels of planets and in lesser ratio of matter to energy. Greater ratio of matter to energy, even as in a physical form. And in fact, the spirits tell us that we use so little of our brain. Our brain has got all this capability. Jesus Christ made us ready to be much superior than we are now. And we'll use that when we are spiritually ready to use it. So I just want to say, everyone, that God bless you for being with me here tonight. Please subscribe, hit the bell, comment, hit the like, and again, I will be talking on Tuesday talking about purgatory from the Gone West with the officer. So God bless everyone.